Let's talk to Angela Levitt, our favourite royal biographer, to find out what she made of the first 3 episodes of this dross called Harry and Meghan. Angela, a very good afternoon to you.
Hello.
So...
I actually found it riveting.
Did you?
For 3 hours I sat there, and the reason is that I've often said they're only interested in talking globally, and this was like an A to Z of global complaints that if it was to do with them, they could manage it all.
Yes.
I thought it was a real demand that they took over. Let me just read some of the things to you. I thought they've rewritten history.
Right.
Remembered every single little grievance over the 5 years that they've known each other.
Right.
Tiny things like a zip went on one occasion. I mean, for goodness sake, who are you to keep all that in your head? Very ungracious. There was no thank yous very much for what Megan's got. I mean, if she's rich and famous now, she wouldn't have been if she hadn't married into the monarchy. And they broke their privacy good and proper. The things they attack, I'm going to keep on talking because I'm bursting.
No, do. That's why I want you. That's why I want to hear from you, Angela, because I want to know everything.
Good. They behaved as if butter wouldn't melt in their mouths, which we know is not true. They go back to 1807 to talk about slavery, black slavery, as if Meghan is somehow in there, and this is why they were so racist, which she believes, to her. I mean, it's got nothing to do with them. They talked about Stephen Lawrence and his murder without mentioning that the mayor, which they hate above all newspapers and often sue, was the people who got the people who killed him on the front page. So that's good things about the press, which they've absolutely hacked to pieces, is that that's nonsense. That the monarchy is old-fashioned and can't last. It must catch up with the rest of Britain. Who do you think would take them over, the monarchy, and bring it up to date with Britain? Them, of course. That's a bid for the monarchy.
Yes.
That the Brexit led to problems for immigrants, which has led to racism. Okay?
Oh, so they thought they'd get into a bit of politics. I mean, she really fancies herself as a politician, doesn't she?
Yep. Then we go on to Kate and Wills, she calls them, brother and sister-in-law. Yes. And they said they're very formal. She's somebody who loves to hug people. Isn't that sweet? But they're very formal. I mean, why slice them like that? I mean, it's just so... If that's all they can find to complain about, I think it's shocking, right? And she criticised the press, but for years she likes to be in centre stage. So that's nonsense. She'd be... You know, what's all this about? This is about promoting them. Yeah. It's on television. It's going to be written about on all the papers. Yeah. She's got PR people, you know, beyond any number you can think of, who are pushing and pushing. And then they sort of pretend they don't want any of it. Martin Bashir interview they go through. I mean, that is outrageous. Did the BBC agree they could use that?
Well, it's a good question because, I mean, people have asked me this question this morning, that they know that Prince William, his brother, his own brother, whose mother was also Princess Diana, has asked the BBC never to show it again. But they've chosen Netflix to run it?
Yes, that's right. And also it would hurt William to even see that, but that doesn't matter. And she's sort of complaining that she didn't know what a walkabout was. What is a walkabout, you see? Well, I mean, you're walking about, aren't you?
I mean, it's not that hard to guess what it is if you didn't know what it was, is it?
And Harry says, you know, she sacrificed everything she knew to join me in our work. And I would say, didn't she get anything back for that?
Right. Well, when you say, you know, but also when you say sacrificed everything, you know, I think you and I have had this conversation before, that she was a mediocre actress, not particularly well known. She couldn't get a part in Hollywood, so she was starring in a rather, shall we say, low-rent sort of mini-series called Suits, which was all right. Nothing to write home about. It wasn't The Sopranos, you know, it wasn't Succession, it wasn't, you know, White Lotus. It wasn't anything that was going to be a massive show. It got slightly bigger after she got to know Harry, because people started watching it because she was in it. But before that, it wasn't very popular.
Yeah. She wasn't anything. But one of her friends, actually a sort of relation, her half-sister's daughter, So she couldn't invite her to the wedding, she says, because she didn't want her half-sister to come. And her half-sister's daughter said she had a beautiful life until it all exploded.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I mean, she's never been more well-known, which is what she likes. She's never been richer, which is what she also likes. And she's never had more people running around after her at her beck and call, which we understand she also likes.
Yes. But the filming was done in all sorts of places which they've gathered together. I mean, 3 hours of moans and showing that they're perfect, they're so good, they're so loving, they understand everything, all the problems of the world. They know how to deal with racism. I mean, it is just breathtaking, actually.
And also Harry. I mean, I actually feel more aggrieved about Harry because let's not forget, whichever way you cut it, he has been raised and brought up on taxpayers' money, right? He's supposed to do a job for this country, which he has now resigned from, despite the fact, you know, it's like training a doctor for the NHS for 10 years, and then suddenly he wanders off and leaves the country and starts working somewhere else for more money. You know, that's how it feels. We trained him to be in the army. We trained him to be an heir to the throne. He's supposed to pay us back that money in service to the country, which he's completely snubbed his nose at, and now he's blaming everybody else.
Yeah, well, he resents that. He feels that that's not an obligation, that you're in this bubble, and then you have to give back to the bubble. He doesn't think that's fair. Well, most normal people would. And he says, how do you explain that you bow to your grandmother? And I had to bow to my grandmother, and she had to curtsy. I don't believe she'd never seen that happen. And I also think that's an incredibly rude thing to say. Incredibly rude.
Yeah, I mean, is it right? I've seen this on a tweet, so I'm asking, I don't know, I haven't actually seen the documentary, but is it right that the sort of the sense of that particular conversation is, you know, who the hell does the Queen think she is to ask people to curtsy to her?
Yes, yes. And so Meghan does a sort of phony curtsy, sitting in a sofa, bending right over with her arms out. I mean, she's obviously good at yoga, and she can put her head into her lap, you know.
Well, people who are good at yoga don't usually have much else to do.
Well, I mean, it is absolutely shocking. And to think that they're going to do 3 more hours of this, their story, they are so pleased that at last they can tell their story. But most of the chapters we've already heard.
Yeah.
You know,
well, they do nothing but tell their bloody story, do they?
It's on and on and on, because they don't want anybody to own it in the press. They want to own it themselves. But what I think is that they're going round the world discussing what's happened for, 200 years, which actually has got nothing to do with their position and their lives.
Right.
And it's just grabbing that makes me feel very concerned, because I had this feeling they want to destroy everything and they will be the global king and queen of the world. I think it's just it's fascinating and painful to watch.
Yes. Do you think, Angela, as I do, that if there is anything incendiary, which we were kind of promised in the trailers, that's going to come in the next 3 episodes then?
Well, I think it is. It's the leaving of the palace, really. I mean, they did have then Prince Charles complaining about the press once, and they show lots of pictures with him.
Yeah.
So, but it's as if they're bringing them all up and making a judgment on him. But any sort of little nasty bits and pieces is put into lots of cosy chats around it to make it seem less. I think they're quite cautious about that.
Yes.
But I think in the next one, when they're already grieving about how Meghan has been treated and how the world treats black people, it'll get much worse.
Yes. And I mean, the trailers. Should we have a look at one of the trailers from or the episode from this morning? Have we got that? And we'll have that in a second. But the trailers that we saw earlier this week both suggested that there was going to be kind of rancour between Meghan and Harry and William and Kate. There was suggestions that it was racist. There was a war on Meghan. I mean, it doesn't sound as though these first 3 episodes have described any of that.
Well, they're building up to the, a more exciting thing to make you watch it again. But all the time I was thinking to myself, why you wanted to be half in, half out at the monarchy. You want titles for your children. You hang on to your own titles. Why? Why didn't you just cut it off? It was so horrendous, so out of date, so formal. That you can't bear it and you should live your own life. You know, it's a mystery that they want, and Meghan wears sort of neutral clothes.
Yes.
Long hair. You know, it's all phony, really.
Well, it is, because one of the things I'm going to ask you about in a moment is why on earth, and I think it's a bit creepy actually, does Meghan continue to copy Diana's dress style? You know, she's worn now more than about half a dozen times a dress identical to the one that Harry's mother wore at a particular outing. But let's have a look at what went out this morning.
It's really hard to look back on it now and go, what on earth happened?
You hear that? That is the sound of hearts breaking all around the world.
She's becoming a royal rock star.
And then
Everything changed. There's a hierarchy of the family. You know, there's leaking, but there's also planting of stories.
There was a war against Meghan to suit other people's agendas.
It's about hatred. It's about race.
It's a dirty game. The pain and suffering of women marrying into this institution, this feeding frenzy.
I realized they're never going to protect you.
I was terrified. I didn't want history to repeat itself. No one knows the full truth. We know the full truth.
So volume 1, really none of that at all, right?
No, there's a detective element in it, isn't it? Building up the plot. Well, first of all, it's awful to show Diana like that. She turned Charles's wish to provide her with private security guards. She didn't want them. And unfortunately, that was a mistake. She should have had them. She could have had them with a click of her fingers. All the photographers there had absolutely nothing to do with Harry and Meghan. You know, it was a 19...
But this is it. I mean, as I know, people have been saying to me all week, oh, well, you'll have to wait and see because maybe they won't use all that stuff in the real actual show. Well, the point is that they've already used it to sell the show. They've already proven themselves to be liars. They've already proven themselves to be complete and utter myth merchants. They've made stuff up. They've deliberately conflated situations which they were not involved in to make it look as if they were. You know, it's misrepresentation at the very least, and it's outright lies at the worst.
Yes, but you see, these 3 episodes were a lot taken up with their childhood.
Yeah.
You get the fact when Diana's pregnant, when she had Harry, what Prince Charles said when they came out of the hospital, and it all goes, you know, almost day by day, really.
Yeah.
They would have done that, I'm sure, if they could. And Meghan the same. And Doria speaks for the first time, saying she doesn't feel like a mother, she feels like a rather controlling older sister, because they've got such a close bond. And I think they wanted to start from the beginning and go through, but interact within that all the problems of the world that they think lead to racism.
Yes. Now we've got to go on, Angela, unfortunately. But just before we let you go, is there a disclaimer at the top of the show which says that Buckingham Palace refused to comment or something like that?
No.
Because the Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, and all members of the family were approached for comment. Neither Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, nor any member of the family were approached for comment on the content of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's Netflix series. It is understood. So I thought I'd heard somebody this morning say that Buckingham Palace had refused to comment, but in fact they haven't been asked.
I came on within a minute of it starting. I don't think I saw that at all.
OK. All right. Well, we'll be talking about it, I'm sure, for another couple of weeks before they disappear up their own backside, unfortunately for us. But we shall see. Angela, thank you very much indeed. Angela Levin, royal biographer, with her take on what is, so far, a pretty dull, turgid, self-obsessed, self-aggrandising and self-absorbed piece of garbage.